Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm Rick Zamperin. He spent 4 decades in Hamilton courtrooms as a revered lawyer, first as a Crown attorney and then as a criminal lawyer, and in many cases defending accused killers. He also made a mark on stage and is launching a new exciting project with his daughter. I'm pleased to welcome the incomparable Jeff Manishen to the Newsmakers podcast. Mr. Manishen, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure entirely, Rick.
This is your first ever podcast.
Yes, it is.
Very exciting. Why retire now?
I felt that I'd done really what I wanted to do in the practice of law.
Okay.
I had wanted to be a criminal lawyer from age 10, and to actually achieve that and start in 1977 as an assistant Crown attorney and prosecute everything from murder on down, and then switch and do defense work from 1985 on, everything from murder on down. I hit a stage where I was finding to some extent that I wasn't getting the same fulfillment.
Okay.
The stress was there. The stress continued to be there, but the fulfillment of defending people charged with serious criminal offenses, where it was still as important as ever, I just found that I had had kind of enough of it. I was ready to move on.
What did that fulfillment at its fullest feel like for you?
I'd say challenging me. The core for me is to find ways that challenge me for my own particular skill set and aptitude. And I've been blessed with a lot where I've got a good memory. I've always been very comfortable speaking with people. Issues of criminal law always mattered to me a lot, so it was important to kind of hit the books hard and work and prepare, be ready to go, have the variety of different cases, different situations. Improv to some extent. You don't know what a witness will say in a cross-examination. I would not necessarily write out every word of what I'd say for submissions before a judge. Jury addresses I may, but judge submissions probably not as much. Those were all skills that I felt I had, and the work I was doing was important. And the responsibility I had was great. And that's what I found so fulfilling. I was using skills I had to do important work to help people. We hear a lot of this in the sports realm, where an athlete doesn't get the same thrill at the plate or on the ice or whatever the playing surface is, and they know when their time is up. Is that kind of the feeling that you had? 100%. Yeah. I would say in the last couple of years, I felt that there was a horizon.
Okay.
That there are colleagues and friends of mine who have worked until they couldn't work any longer. And sometimes you worry about, are you losing some of the skills that you had, and you owe it to the client to give them the best performance. But in addition, when you find that there is, I'll characterize it as a measure of sameness, where you sense that it is getting closer to the time where you should move on. And it's a combination of things that you ultimately say, yeah, I can see it. And I found probably last summer, I was ready. And so the plan was, over the next number of months, I'd finish up the cases I had. Anything that I had not finished, where I was scheduling trial dates into 2026, I referred those to other lawyers. Right. And decided end of December would be the time to step out. December
31st, 2025, you vacate the office. What was that like?
The classic, of course, phrase is closing a chapter. You say, okay, that's it. I'm not going back to court. Yeah. The last appearance I had in the Ontario Court of Justice was before a fellow who I was friends with and who I actually worked on a few cases with when he was in practice. And I told him what the situation was. He was very complimentary. My last full appearance in Superior Court was before a former student of mine who had gone on to be a Superior Court judge. And he let the parties know, that he had been a former student of mine, an excellent judge, and made submissions on sentence and received that decision, closing that chapter, and saying goodbye to the folks in the office and thanking them for their support, packing everything up. I guess, sure, I wouldn't say there was a feeling of wistfulness. It was rather a feeling of that closes the book.
A feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, you could say, and really you could say completion. Yeah. That there wasn't anything more to do. No feeling of, gee, I wonder if, no second thoughts, no worry about what if I regret this 6 months later. No, I had made the decision, so I was comfortable with it.
40 years. Did you think you'd last that long?
I never really looked ahead that way. But I've been blessed. My parents were youthful and energetic through all of their lives. I've been blessed with a good, healthy amount of energy that way. So I felt so long as I can do that, I would keep going at it. But I never really thought in terms of how many years. And on the other hand, I didn't feel like, oh, gee, I should practice 50 years, and that's a nice round number. Right. I never felt committed to that. There was never a time component. It was rather, as you said earlier, a question of when's the right time. And you keep going until you say, that's it.
You mentioned you were 10 years old. You wanted to be a criminal lawyer. How did that get in your mind?
It's a mystery for me. The closest I could come, Rick, is I loved reading when I was a kid. And I had a buddy who was a very avid reader, too, and he'd find books that he'd recommend to me. I found books I could recommend to him. And I remember two that I read. One was about a guy who was on death row for many years for some serious crimes and fought representing himself to try and stave off the execution. And another was about Clarence Darrow, a book, I think it was Clarence Darrow for the Defense. And somehow reading those books made me think, I don't know how I could say it. We didn't have lawyers in the family. This is what I want to do, is be a criminal lawyer. And we had a project to do when I was in maybe grade 5 when I grew up. And we had a little booklet, and I wrote that I want to be a criminal lawyer, and I still have that booklet today.
Wow. So what did your energetic parents think at the time?
Well, my dad had a sheet metal business that had been his dad's. They were supportive. Okay. I mean, they were supportive of everything that I did. It was a classic home with the unconditional love and support. And so they were very happy with that, if that's what I wanted to do. I think they were quite proud. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a terrific break. In 1978, I prosecuted my first murder case when I was 26. And it was an 8-week trial. And I did it by myself.
Wow.
And as it turned out, my family, they're from Winnipeg, my dad had a trade show to go to in Toronto right around the end of May of 1978. And he was able to come down to Hamilton and see me do my closing jury address on this trial. Well, that was really, really cool. Something I never would have figured was possible. And it came to pass.
Yeah. And how did he respond to your final entry in the courtroom that day?
Well, I think he was proud, but because it was so foreign to his kind of background and experience, and the subject matter was really pretty grim. A woman had been beaten to death and her body left on the beach strip. That was something that I think he wasn't really all that comfortable with. But was he pleased to see that I was getting to do what I wanted to do? Absolutely.
So you're 10, you wanted to be a lawyer, you go to law school, you're in the Winnipeg area in law school?
No, I came to Ontario for law school. I did my undergrad at the University of Manitoba. A family friend had said to me, what are you going to do for law school? And I said, well, I'll go to Manitoba. He said, well, you're here, you're with everybody you know. Why don't you go away to school? You'll be with people that you don't know, and you'll change your whole life experience. So I thought, well, that makes sense. So I applied to Osgoode and U of T and UBC in Manitoba, and I wound up getting into Osgoode. And so I moved to Toronto in the fall of 1972 before first year, never having been to Toronto before. And I really loved Ontario, and ultimately law school was great, and got a job down here in Hamilton.
Wow. Do you remember your first court appearance and what that like and what you felt?
Well, the first one that comes to mind was a bail review, where somebody had been denied bail, and the defense lawyer wanted to have that reviewed to get the person out. And so I had to put on the gown. And you wear your robes when you get your call to the bar, with the vest and the tabs and, I call it my suit of darks. If Matadors were a suit of lights, I thought of it as a suit of darks. Right. And to put the robes on for the first time was exciting, thrilling. I was certainly comfortable and confident. And one of the nice features of being in Hamilton was I got really good work early. So I did my first jury trial 2 months after I got my call. Wow. And it was, I think the best way I could put it is everything I hoped it would be. It gave me the challenge. I felt confident. I felt comfortable. It was where I felt I should be.
Yeah. How did the bail review go? Do you remember?
I think the bail review application was dismissed, but so long ago it's hard to remember. I think that was the case.
So how did you end up in Hamilton? You're at school in Toronto. You just got an opportunity in Hamilton?
Well, what happened was during my articling year, and I had the great fortune to article with Eddie Greenspan, and he had a fraud trial to do in Sault Ste. Marie, a preliminary hearing. And the Crown attorney from Sudbury, who was assigned to prosecute the case, and he was a lawyer who was charged, was a man named John Takash. And so we were there a few different times because the preliminary went on a number of different occasions. I got to know John. And as it turned out, when I was ready to try and get a job, and I applied for a few different places and had not gotten anything, Eddie phoned the director of Crown Attorneys for the province, who he knew, and said, here's a guy that you should not let get out of the Crown system. Hire him on if you can. And John Greenwood is the fellow's name. He hired me on a 1-year contract and gave me a choice of coming to Brampton or to Hamilton for the year. My plan was to go back to Toronto. Well, I knew John was here, and I knew some of the other people here. And I thought, gee, I would be pretty darn comfortable if I was to come down here. So I decided to take Hamilton. And then partway through that year, John got appointed as Director of Crowns for the province. Anton Zura became the Crown and said to me, look, there's a full-time job here that's mine if you want it. And I thought, I've got to take it. The people were so nice. The work was so good. And I really fell in love with the community.
And Hamilton at that point in time, early 80s, certainly the 1980s, was a volatile time in terms of crime. We had the mob that was in full effect, a lot of dangerous things were happening.
Absolutely. And so I was there from 77 to 85, and I prosecuted all kinds of cases, homicide cases, a biker who was allegedly high on cocaine and shot and killed an 18-year-old girl, a 4-year-old little boy, and his defense was toxic psychosis. That as a result of the ingestion of cocaine, he was essentially not criminally responsible or insane. All kinds of fraud cases, sexual assault matters, drinking and driving, everything. So there was a good range of cases to do, and no problem in terms of challenging cases.
So you started as a Crown attorney, and then you went to a criminal lawyer. Why the move?
It was what I always wanted to do.
Okay.
Remember from 10. And Eddie had said to me, to get it, he's with the Crown's office, I'd get good experience. He said, don't get too comfortable. You can get into the kind of trap of you've got your salary and benefits and all that. But if you really want to be a defense counsel, after, say, 5 years, take a good look. So 5, I was still getting good work. Same. 6, by 7, I was ready. And so August of 85, I decided to leave. And it was what I wanted to do. And I talked with a guy who was a year ahead of me in school, a guy named Rick Shields, and he encouraged me to come to Ross and McBride. And that's what I did. And I did criminal defense work through the firm ever since.
Now, does the Crown in that case try to retain you because they see that you have talent? They want you on their side, so to speak. What is that process like?
I did actually get an offer from the Crown, from the Minister Attorney General in Toronto, for a year at least, do special prosecutions, challenging cases all around through the province, elsewhere. But I had decided that no, it was time to leave and time to go on the defense side. Yeah. Because there's a big difference. As a Crown, your role is to be exclusive of any winning or losing. And so you have to approach it that way. And frankly, over the years I was a Crown, I didn't find myself really happy when someone was convicted or got a long sentence. Right. If I'm not supposed to win or lose, then I don't. But the cases came to you because they were assigned to you or it happened to be in your court. On the defense side, it's a very different world. The person has come to you and said, I need you to help me. And so that's your responsibility. Now there is a winning or losing. Now there is making a difference, the way I put it, between somebody going out the front door, going home, or the back door into custody. And so it's a very, very different exercise. Crowns can't give emotionally charged jury addresses. The defense, there's more license for that. And there was more room for creativity and independence, too. So all those features said to me, it's what I wanted to do, and that's why I made those decisions.
So when you or others make a move like that from the Crown to the defense side, are you looked at differently by Crown prosecutors at that point?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I mean, in fact, to give you an answer in that regard, Rick, number one, I used to teach at Crown Attorneys Summer School continuing education programs and be on panels, and that was the case even up till 1985. For many years thereafter, as recently as last year, I've been continued to ask to participate in Crown education programs. And so they don't see me as the enemy.
Right.
I mean, they see me as a colleague and somebody who can provide some advice and instruction that they could benefit from. So, I always got along just great with Crowns. I have many, many friends, Crown Attorney's offices all over the place. So no, that wasn't a change.
What do lawyers talk about around the old water cooler?
Oh, I think probably war stories.
Yeah.
One of the big ones is, what kind of cases they've been doing, what kind of issues, sometimes in terms of appearance in front of judges, experiences with Crowns. Sometimes it's brainstorming. Have you dealt with this issue before? What do you think I should do in relation to this cross-examination? What do you think is the right range of sentence? So it'll be a blend of different things. It's stories, but it's also shared experience and shared ideas.
Yeah. Do you have a comical moment in the courtroom, or maybe out of the courtroom, that's connected to the law?
I remember, there's certainly several. I remember once that I had a case in which, in fact, that case I did in 1978, I had an expert witness from the Center for Forensic Sciences, and he spoke with a bit of an accent. And he was being cross-examined about, well, is this possible? This was blood spatter evidence. Is this possible? Is that possible? And finally, he got so frustrated, he said to the defense counsel, now look, you keep asking me, is this possible? Is that possible? Well, I can tell you that's almost anything is possible. You ask me, can I take my pants off over my head? That's not possible. But anything else, that's possible.
Wow.
And this is in front of a jury on a murder trial. And I had one with a potential jury selection where a juror indicated he couldn't serve on the jury. This was before, as we were picking them, and the judge said, why? He said he worked at an LCBO and he had to arrest somebody for shoplifting. And the guy said, yeah, well, you aren't going to bother me because my lord Jeff Manishen's going to get you.
So they put you on the spot?
Well, it was strange. And then, I know. It was a former client. He thought I'd cross-examine the guy into a pastry. So that's what he was showing. Everybody cracked up in the courtroom.
Yeah.
So we've had some.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Were there, and we don't have to get into specific names, but were there cases that, as a criminal lawyer, you win or lose, that you lost and were really crushing for you personally because you thought you had a good case or you thought you had a good chance?
What you try and do, Rick, to kind of insulate yourself from that, so as a Crown, you aren't supposed to win or lose, so you don't hang up on the outcome. As a defense counsel, what you try and do is maintain some detachment, where certainly you care about the case, you care about the client, but let's just say you keep a bit of your heart to yourself.
Sure.
Because if it turns out not to go the way that you, with all of your heart, felt it was going to be, you could be haunted by that. So the approach that I would take is to say, look, I will throw everything into worrying before, and the stress level is significant. I mean, it really is. Worrying during, so that I don't worry afterwards. That's number one. Number two is a basic rule, and I've said this to young lawyers, you can't control the outcome. The best you can do, if we say, well, you can influence the outcome. No, you might be able to influence the outcome. But the outcome could occur for a whole host of reasons. Facts that you simply inherited because that's the nature of the evidence. Just who the jury happens to be, how your opposing counsel does, how witnesses do. So you can't control the outcome, so you can live with it. And here's the other one. And you always hear how do you represent somebody when you know they're guilty? Yeah, it's your job. You maintain that distance. Yeah. The one that you really never hear anybody ask, how do you feel when somebody you really believed was innocent was convicted? How do you deal with that? You never heard that question asked.
How did you do that?
The way that I would approach it is, and I had a guy who, no question, I believed that he was innocent. He was convicted. There were grounds of appeal. The Court of Appeal ordered a new trial, and the conviction was set aside. The way that I dealt with it was to say, look, this is what the jury did. This is the way the evidence played out. I did what I could do. You want to be able to live with the outcome. And I was able to. And I've had cases where I thought, gee, the judge or the jury got it wrong, but I can reconcile it by saying, again, I can't control the outcome. The one you don't want to have is you look back and go, gee, I should have done this, or I wasn't really prepared for that. Okay, that was not really the kind of quality and standard of work that I felt I owed to the client and to myself. Because really at the core of it, you owe to yourself the responsibility of living up to a high level of standard each and every time. We're both sports fans. As you can have a bad game one, you got a game two. For the client, the analogy I use is every case, it's a game seven. There's no tomorrow. So that's your responsibility. You can't give yourself the luxury of an off day. You just can't. And so you can see after 40 years, that can be wearing. That's how it unfolds.
What is the emotional toll like? Is it a roller coaster, or are you trying to maintain not only neutrality, but a level head throughout the process?
Great question. And the answer, I'd say, Rick, is if you have to deal with it on the basis that, fine, this was a bad day, there will be corresponding good days. Or this was a good day, there'll be corresponding bad days. Don't get too high on the good days. Don't get too low on the bad days. And realize that you will, I've had cases where things looked like they were going very badly and then they'll turn. Or other cases where I thought they weren't perfectly and the person was convicted. So you look to find that. The stress comes in where you say, am I going to be ready to go? And cross-examining witnesses is so difficult because you don't know for sure what they're going to say. You try and train yourself and you prepare. And certainly the issue of cross-examination is something that I've always loved to do and teach. But you know that there is going to be an element of what's going to happen tomorrow. And so the stress of, am I going to be ready? What are the things I need to do to prepare? That's the toll that you pay, that I found I had to pay.
This is one of the most fascinating parts of criminal, the legal system is that cross-examination preparation. Do you present your case and then within yourself go through the options that can be delivered on whatever statement you're making?
Well,
and then is it like a big Rubik's Cube?
It kind of is like that.
Okay.
And that ties into the kind of teaching work that I have, that I've told you about, that I'm going to be working on in the future. What you do is you try and think to yourself, what is there about the witness's evidence that I can challenge? Are there specific facts? Is there a theory that I can develop? Can I play this witness against other witnesses? Has the witness given inconsistent statements in the past that I can challenge them on? Are there aspects of the story that are entirely unreasonable and unbelievable? What are the things from my client's version that I'm obliged to put to the witness? And what's the overall theory that I'm going to want the judge or jury to do with the witness, A, on the specific point, B, on the area of the evidence, even C, on the overall, what to take from the witness within the context of the Crown's case and within the context of my case and the overall theory. So it is a kind of series of boxes that you need to think about.
And meanwhile, the Crown is trying to get the answers that, this is in layman's terms, the jury may want to hear.
Sure. And in fact, the Crown will take the witness through the evidence for their witnesses, take the witness through the evidence in chief, as I will with mine, and try and present it in a way that's clear, that's compelling, that's persuasive, and to some extent anticipate what I might do in cross. Same thing for me with my evidence. One of the arguments that could be, or one of the approaches that can be used, the best examination in chief, that's when you take your witness through it, is one that anticipates what could be done in cross and closes off as much as you can with that. And so that's the approach that each side wants to take, how to, A, make their story as persuasive as possible, but B, insulate it as best as you can from attack.
Yeah. How long does that process take?
Well, I
depends
guess
on the case,
it depends
obviously.
on the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had cross-examinations that I've had to do for a number of days.
Right.
I mean, I did a very complex case just a couple of years ago in Halton, where my cross-examination of several of the witnesses was lengthy because they'd given long statements and had multiple components to the allegations, so it was hours and hours to be able to structure it all down. I think with the world of AI, there can be a little bit of help where you can get some summaries of long statements, but I think you still have to look at it yourself. Yeah. You don't want hallucinatory components where you're putting something to a witness as a statement that doesn't exist. Yeah. So, and the way I approached it anyway was I like to do the prep, and this is before AI anyway, do the prep myself, so I really load in what are the details of what the witness says and what I want to do with that.
Yeah. On the flip side, we're talking about big losses, big wins. Did you have a case where it just felt really good, not only for the client, but for yourself and all the prep that you put into it?
Yeah, I certainly had several. I mean, have lots of cases where, murder trials where the people were acquitted. I mean, I had a murder trial many years ago where the first I met of the client was he was in custody. And he was charged with, it was an allegation of he and others conspired to have a guy killed, and he had said he hadn't done it. And over the course, we did he was in custody for months and months. We had a trial that ended in a mistrial. We had to do it again, and ultimately he was acquitted. And to get this scene, Rick, at the old courthouse of 50 Main, all I ever saw from him was either in custody at the jail or in custody at the lockout, and the walk he would take was from the side door of the courtroom into where the prisoner's dock was and back. And that's all I saw for many, many months of him. And when the jury said not guilty, and the judge said you're free to go, and he stepped out of the prisoner's dock and started to take a couple steps and left that path to come over and give me a hug.
Wow.
I won't forget that.
Yeah.
And he and I had kept in touch over the course of years, but it was a very compelling moment because this person's liberty had been returned to him. And I got to actually see that occur.
It's a powerful moment. What was it like in your early days as a criminal lawyer defending accused killers?
Well, I got to see a murder trial start to finish with Eddie Greenspan when I was an articling student.
Right.
So it wasn't as though it was shocking. I mean, those are the allegations. And certainly I had cases where there's no issue the person had done the act. The issue is potentially, could it be second-degree murder instead of first-degree? Right. Could it be manslaughter instead of second-degree? Could it be self-defense where, although the act took place, the person has a defense to it, or not criminally responsible by mental disorder, no issue about the act? I didn't find that exceptionally challenging because you had somebody charged with a drinking and driving offense or a sexual assault that the person said he didn't do. Right. Well, I mean, serious sexual assault, homicide, there are gradations, obviously, and the taking of a life is significant. Drinking, driving, criminal negligence causing death. Yeah. You have a loss of life. You have victim and family where the emotional impact is extreme.
Did the pressure remain the same? The pressure that you put on yourself, was it the same, whether it was a murder trial or something to a lesser degree, if I can put it that way?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Because in each case, you don't think about, I tried not to get into thinking about what's at stake.
Yeah.
Oh, this is more demanding and challenging because the person might be looking at a life jail sentence as opposed to 2 years. No, because the focus was their position, was their defense. So the pressure was, again, as I said before, that I would put on me to give them the best quality service, whatever the case.
Yeah.
So I had anxious night's sleep before drinking driving case, refusing to take a breath test, and I'm up every couple hours thinking about what am I going to do with the police officer.
Wow. You mentioned AI. Do you find this as a useful tool, or could be dangerous?
Well, I had a couple of matters where I asked a colleague in the office of my former firm to use AI to sort of generate what would the program suggest could be done with given witnesses. Now, I had already prepared my own notes, my own cross-examinations, a little bit of a cross-reference of let's see what that shows.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see, and some of the theories and approaches were similar to things that I had. There were a couple of areas that were recommended where I thought, no, you can't do that because of these legal issues. I knew that. Okay. The summaries were certainly helpful, but again, if you give it to AI to do, you haven't really learned the evidence the same way as you would if you're preparing your own summaries. So, on the other hand, I'm sure in longer and complex cases, then it's going to be very helpful because you're going to put in the right questions to specifically ask for the kinds of charts, summaries, and breakdowns that will shorten the preparation time. I think it's helpful there.
Yeah. Do you think it'll make being a lawyer easier in the future?
I would say to some extent, sure. I mean, one of the questions is what sorts of tasks that lawyers do in other areas aside from criminal law, where it's really kind of routine. Preparing certain documents, for example, and drafting material or doing research. It may well be that AI can do that more quickly, remarkably quickly, than a lawyer could do. Could there be ultimately a cost saving to clients to be able to have some work done by AI with the lawyer overseeing and supervising? Sure. So will it change the way the profession will go? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to get into was your career on stage, because you weren't just someone in the courtroom who made some big plays here and there, but you were from a very young age attracted to the theater and being a performer. And that certainly helped you as a lawyer. But talk about getting into acting and being in character, if I put it that way.
Well, what happened was my parents, I guess they saw I was outgoing and confident. And I might have done a school play, I can't recall, but they'd read in the Winnipeg Free Press that Manitoba Theatre Centre was holding auditions for a couple of plays and looking for boys between the ages of roughly 8 and 12. And they said to me, do you want to audition? I said, sure. So my mom and I went to a small theater in St. Boniface, and we see other kids there who are familiar with what's involved. So they've got audition pieces they're working on.
Okay.
We didn't know that, so I didn't have anything. So I go into the theater. It's an empty theater except 2 people sitting there. And they said, have you got anything prepared? And I said, no. And they said, well, okay, here's what we'd like you to do. There's a hat and a violin on stage. Take those. You're a clown violinist. Make us laugh. So I
And how old are you at this point?
I think probably 9.
Okay, so the pressure's on.
Well, but I didn't feel the pressure.
Right.
Somehow.
You're just a kid.
Yeah. I've been blessed with, remember I talk about the gifts. One is just a measure of confidence. And another is sort of communication skills that just come to me naturally. And a quick mind. And my dad was very funny, so he kibitzed around a lot. So I improvised. And they loved it. And I wound up getting cast in a play at Manitoba Theatre Centre that John Hirsch, who is a legendary Canadian director, directed.
Wow.
And in the cast was a guy named Len Cariou, a wonderful actor, went on to star at Stratford, won a Tony on Broadway playing Sweeney Todd.
Wow.
And did the TV show Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
He plays the grandfather in Blue Bloods.
Okay.
So I was on stage with him in 1961.
Wow.
And then I did TV and radio in Winnipeg with CBC. Radio Dramas, a weekly TV show. And so it was always something that I enjoyed. And then coming to Hamilton, I had an idea for something from law school.
Yeah.
By law, lawyers are not allowed to be on a jury. We're excluded. And so I'd read the play and seen the movie 12 Angry Men. And I thought, this is a chance for lawyers to be jurors. So I suggested it to a buddy, Randy Mazza, who's passed away since. Yeah. Randy was a lawyer, ultimately became a judge. And I said, I had this idea, 12 lawyers playing the 12 jurors in 12 Angry Men. And he had acted in high school. He said, we can do it. I said, how? Where are we going to find people? I know some people.
Really?
Well, we rounded up our cast, and we did it. And 1983, and the idea, a friend of mine from Winnipeg, an actress named Terry Cherniak, her husband Stephen Shipper, a director, came down and saw it. Several years later, Stephen did it with Manitoba Theatre Center, where he was now the artistic director with the Manitoba Bar.
Wow.
And this was 1990. And they made a lot of money, and they've done shows ever since, and every year. And now the idea got picked up nationally.
Yeah.
In fact, I've heard internationally.
Wow.
And we've done shows in Hamilton since, too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So at 9, did you get the acting bug that may have superseded becoming a lawyer, or?
No, I have a program. I'm sort of a pack rat. And I played Winthrop in The Music Man at Rainbow Stage, which is a professional outdoor summer theater.
Yeah.
Seats like 3,000, with, open to the air. And the character I had was, a secondary leading role. So there's a paragraph about me, and in it mentioned that I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. Mm. And that was always it. Mm-hmm. It was never really, the acting career was going to be it, and that didn't work out. I mean, hey, Rick, by the time I was 14, 15, I wasn't getting calls from CBC anymore. I was an ACTRA member for a time, but I wasn't getting calls. But it didn't matter anyway, because it wasn't what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I don't regret that.
Now you're on to a new project, and your daughter's involved in this, and this is very exciting. Tell us about this.
Well, she came to me about a year and a half ago, and she had a background in advertising as a copywriter, and then managed a group of artists with a company that did visual effect for film, and she got the bug to do independent film production, whether it's videos, TV, movies, whatever it was. And she said, "What are you going to do when you stop going to court?" And I said, "I don't really know." She said, "Well, here's an idea." She said, "There's a series called Masterclass. It's recorded lectures that people can subscribe to get." She said, "Could you do something like that on trial advocacy, and I could produce it?" I said, "Yeah, I could do that." Mm-hmm. Well, it came to pass. She found a videographer. I developed 16 lectures. Everything from interviewing your client to preparing your client to testify, conducting the examination in chief, cross-examination, the theory, use of inconsistent statements, jury addresses, judge-alone submissions, re-examination, dealing with expert witnesses, 2.5 hours of lectures. And last Father's Day, we recorded them with a videographer, and it's called goodcounselonline.com. And we're setting up a website, a hosting platform, where people will be able to subscribe to the lectures. And it should go live in the next, few weeks. We're in the final stages. Wow. She found an editor, videographer, the colorist, sound balance, graphic designer, and it'll be meant for young lawyers who didn't get the trial advocacy training or would like to get more of it, and more experienced lawyers who can always use some ideas. And potentially witnesses, expert witnesses and others, to say, I could learn from it. And we found the people who were working on it with us, they were so interested. We found it fascinating. Yeah. They said it's kind of like edutainment. But lawyers will be able to get continuing education credits for that.
That's amazing.
And the site is goodcounselonline.com. And we've got a promotional sort of video up on it right now. People are interested in seeing it.
Is this a first of its kind of venture?
I have not seen it elsewhere. Masterclass, we watched a couple of them last year with Martin Scorsese on directing and Aaron Sorkin on screenwriting. So Masterclass has existed for a while. We aren't connected with them. We've set up our own web hosting platform. The technical stuff, that's all hers. I won't confess to know it. I don't know if anybody else has yet done it. There are lawyers I know from the States who've done a lot of trial advocacy teaching. And they've done seminars, and they've got books, and they've got videos. But a video lecture series like this, I don't know that there is something quite like it. And remember, I've been, number one, in criminal law for 48 years. Number two, I've taught trial advocacy all over the place. I've taught it in Toronto Law School at Osgood. I've taught at Crown Attorney Summer Schools, Advocate Society, Law Society. I even got to teach in Atlanta at Emory University. They had a trial techniques program for their law students. I went down there for a couple of years and taught in the summer or at the end of the semester for a week at a time with lawyers and judges from all over the States and some from Canada. So and I've written some articles on it. So trial advocacy is something that I didn't just do. It's not, I don't know how I did it. I believe I know how I did it. The trick is, can I teach it?
And I'm sure you can.
Thank you.
What was it like working with your daughter on this?
A treat.
Yeah.
A treat. She and I our son and I have a wonderful relationship too, and it's terrific. With our daughter, she seems to be on the same wavelength as me and has for many years. She didn't want to go into law, and I didn't push. It was her choice. I kidded her. The firm of Manishen LLP is the firm that never was. But on the other hand, that she should think about me and think about an idea. And I have to confess, Rick, or acknowledge, it was a factor that made me feel more comfortable about leaving the practice of law because I'd have something to go to. And so for our daughter and I to work together, I will take direction from her. If she says, no, Dad, this is what we have to do to be able to market it this way or to be able to design it that way, I will listen. On the other hand, we seem to be on the same length very quickly. So when it comes, for example, to, let's say, writing copy for the website, well, that's her background. But then my world has been persuasion, too, both in oral and written form. So I will take a look at what she's done and polish and change, and we come to an agreement very quickly.
Is this going to expand, or is this a standalone, this is what it is? Well,
I think when she originally said to me, can you come up with topics to lecture on? I had 30 without trying hard. She said, can you cut it down a little?
Right.
How about, say, 16?
Okay.
So it's 4 modules of 4 each. And some of the lectures are shorter, 6, 7 minutes, others 12, 14 minutes. What we did was I prepared the kind of outline for the talk, but I couldn't, of course, stick to it rigidly. With our videographer, we've got 3 cameras set up. She's got a laptop there. That's my teleprompter. At times it was running a little slow. I'd have to kick her to pick it up a little bit, kick the computer.
Yeah.
And so I covered what I felt were, I'll call it fundamentals. It's not comprehensive. There's always tons more to talk about. Is there room for a goodcounselonline.com 2.0? Sure, if there's enough interest. I mean, right now, the people I've talked to, and I tell people about it, of course, and gee, I'd love to see that. So we'll see how it'll turn out. We're going to launch it, as I say, in a couple of weeks where people will be able to sign up there. Right now with the site, you can, if you've got an interest, let us know and we'll follow up with it. If there's enough interest, sure, we could do it. And I think the next time around, obviously, we know what did and didn't work. And for an efficiency standpoint, I bet you we could do it more quickly the next time.
Absolutely.
But she put together a terrific team. And the quality of, have you had a chance
to
look?
It, yes.
And you can see it. It's not a phone on a desk.
No.
It's got a really professional look to it. Her art designer friend, colleague from years back, she's very talented.
Yeah.
And so the look of it is really, really compelling, really clear. And that's what we wanted. We wanted something to be easy to be able to follow. But frankly, Rick, what I was trying to do was enough content where people could say, I want to see that again. Or I heard a story recently. A colleague of mine is a judge. He was at a conference in Quebec, and a judge who was sitting at the table with him said he was from Montreal. And my friend said he was from Hamilton. And apparently this guy said to my friend, do you know Jeff Manishen? And my friend said, yes, why? He said, well, because I saw a video he did years ago for a Law Society program, cross-examination. He said it changed the way I practiced.
Wow.
And there was, it's out on YouTube, I think, when I had a lot more hair, a lot more energy, but a similar kind of topic. And I have had people over the years say, hey, I saw that video and it really helped. So it is something that is meant to be of practical benefit to people. And I'll be very interested in knowing the response. On the website, when people will sign up, one of the things that we're going to have is a discussion page.
Nice.
So if lawyers find that they use some things I gave them, and it works, and they're able to post, hey, this is a method that I used and it was effective. I'd love to know that. And everybody else might say, hey, this is good. I can feel more confident. But things that I have taught, I've had good feedback that people have used it and it's helped them.
That's amazing. I don't know how many 10-year-olds are going to be watching this podcast, but if there is, and they want to get into criminal law, what's your advice to them?
Well, I think number one is read. The more you read, the more you understand a kind of knowledge base of what's happening in the world. There are certainly lots of books now about the justice system, but now there are also podcasts and on legal issues. There are TV shows. There are documentaries. So you'll have the chance to be able to read and know a lot more. And frankly, law in high school, Rick, it wasn't available for me. I just went out to St. Thomas More. A wonderful teacher there named Andre Leone has taught law at St. Thomas More for years, and I've done a couple of guest classes. Was just there a couple of weeks ago, and she does a wonderful job. And there are when law is taught in high school, obviously it's something that students will be able to benefit from. And they even have trial advocacy competitions. So there's room in high school now to be able to get the training to develop that. If you've got that interest to develop it, go with it.
Yeah.
I always say to young people for career planning, what is it that you're interested in? What is it that you're naturally good at? Where are your aptitudes? What are your needs? Do you need stability? Do you need challenge? Do you need variety? Do you need to be able to help people? Do you need to travel? And then find a career where those things intersect. And find out who works in those areas and really read up on it and say, help decide, is that the career for you?
Yeah. You mentioned TV shows. As a lawyer, did you watch law shows back in the day?
I didn't that much.
Yeah.
I tended to find, Rick, I'll give you a wrestling analogy. Okay, when you see something that's way off, you feel like tagging off and jumping over the top and no, that's not how to do it. Or even worse, you kind of go, well, that's just fake.
Yeah, that would never happen.
That would never happen.
Right.
I mean, there was a show that Eddie did that was on radio and TV. It was called The Scales of Justice. And it was recreations of famous criminal cases. And it was radio initially, and over the time, after some of the older cases, he started doing recreations of cases and using the counsel that did them at trial.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, I got to do one of those. So the case I had with the biker who was high on cocaine, it went to the Supreme Court of Canada. He was convicted. Conviction was upheld. And I contacted Eddie's producer, friend George Jonas, and say, this is an interesting case. You may want to cover it. And he decided to do it. And John Rosen, who was the defense counsel, John and I recreated our roles. And we went into the CBC studios, and we basically kind of reenacted parts of the trial for radio broadcast, including my cross-examination of the main defense psychiatrist and working with professional actors.
Wow.
So, there isn't that show doesn't exist now, but there are certainly ample resources with YouTube and documentary channel and all. There's loads of resources for young people to learn what it's like to be a lawyer.
You've had a tremendous career, an amazing legacy. It continues with this new project that you're working on. Thanks for being you all these years and for defending the law and joining us on the podcast today. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Rick. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, that is Jeff Manishen, and that is a wrap for the Newsmakers podcast. A big thanks to the All-Star cast behind the scenes. If you like today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment. You can catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.